Hello and welcome to DNA Empowerment Podcast. I am Danielle Nicole Anderson and I am here again with Lyndsy Ray Porter. Hi, Lyndsy.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
So we haven't had a podcast in a little while
We've been really busy.
because I haven't had the space in my life to do a podcast. And that which brings me to the point of astrology and my design and human design being a projector. This Mercury retrograde that we just went through for the last 3 weeks, or a few days ago it ended, but it was in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is in the bottommost part of my chart. And so it was excavating. And Mercury is the ruler of my chart. So whatever it's doing is like the most impactful thing. Venus is the ruler of your chart, by the way. So whatever Venus is doing is the sun is really rises and sets on that for you. And so when Mercury goes retrograde, which it does, more than any other personal planet, it tends to hit people who have that as their chart ruler a little bit harder. And the fact that it went down over my IC and the bottommost bits of me in Sagittarius had me doing internal mucky work. And it hit my cardinal cross. So the cardinal cross, for those that don't know, is the cross that goes through the middle of a birth chart. And it initiates your identity on one side. The very bottommost part is home, family, ancestry. And then that right side of the cross is partnerships, so marriage, all of that. And then the topmost part of the cross is public self, career, that sort of thing. And so when Mercury was retrograding over my IC, it was also hitting my public self by opposition and hitting my identity and my partnership by square, which is friction and tension and friction. And so, yeah, I didn't do a podcast for 3 weeks.
When you say I see, you mean
Uh, it's the bottom part of the cross. The bottom
oh,
part of the cross of that cardinal cross is the IC. It's the marker in a chart, the greatest marker of early childhood development, home, family, ancestry, deep self. Um, yeah,
that's a helpful explanation. Okay.
yeah.
Thank
And so there were all kinds of things about that I wanted to talk about in the podcast, but then I just couldn't because so much has changed for me internally in the last 4 weeks. It's been wild. And so I am committed to um, doing my work in the world in a Venus way rather than a Mars way. And which means there's a book called Choice Theory, and it has to do with the underlying motivation behind all of the decisions we make every day, or the things we decide to do, the things we decide not to do. And that at its root, everything is based on either fear or love. And, fear being, let's call fear Mars and let's call love Venus. And if I am doing a podcast because I feel like I have to, or what's the motivation if I'm not doing it from a place of love and excitement and like where I have the space and the flow to do it. If I'm doing it because I feel like, oh, I have to or else, then that's a fear motivated podcast. So guys who are listening to this, I appreciate you listening and showing up in my non-consistency, because I can promise you that I will be inconsistent. But when I do show up, I will show up ready to be centered and aligned. And if I was consistent, I would not be. So,
Isn't that what we want for everything and everyone here? Like, I know the world probably wouldn't like function the way that we want it to, but like, actually, anybody who has read about or gone to Africa, and again, parts of it have been westernized, but like that whole place, oh yeah, we'll be there at 1 o'clock. See you at 5. And they'll just show up and unapologetically like, I'm here. And you're like, huh? Like they literally operate outside of time and space. And but then again, they don't live in a world, and I'm saying blanket statements, right? I'm speaking of my experience in Ethiopia and in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, in West Africa, and many other places. Like after studying West African culture and history, and they even have large chapters in most books that you study about African culture about time and how it's really this made up aspect. And the Western world really dominates things like film and cinema. So in many things we dominate and colonize. So we think that the rest of the world should align with this, but it truly, in that world, it's no, like I said I'd be here at 1, but then my niece and then my mom and then the soup, and it's like it
Yeah,
really
it's a
is, they show
construct,
up.
right? Time is a construct.
Oh yeah.
And it takes us out of the present. What's rising in my experience right now, I can't fully be available to that, which is everything that I need for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If
And
I'm
it's
thinking about this deadline, or if I'm thinking about what's in the next, or if I'm thinking about an attachment that I have to the way things were
mm-hmm.
prior to this moment, and all those moments are dead. They're
Yeah.
gone, you know. Um, but yeah, and it wouldn't work in the structure of the way things are now in Western culture. But I'm telling you, this is a perfect leading point to the astrology of 2025. Because if we thought things changed in 2020, let me tell you, they did. They're going to change a lot more this year and a lot faster. And our entire culture is going to be rearranged. So,
I think I'm ready for a rearranging though. Like let's just think about what a rearranging is, and like it's not fun in the midst, right? The furniture's everywhere. If you closed your eyes, you couldn't walk in a straight line, you'd trip and fall. But once you've dusted out and swept under the rug and you sit down and you're like, oh, I didn't see it from this perspective, like it
yeah,
sucks. But also, like, I don't really know anybody who couldn't use a rearranging. Things are weird, real weird and
yeah,
fun.
it's trying to think the yeah. So we have for the first time in, I think it's been like somebody said 12,000 years since all of the external planets have shifted into new signs in the same year as each other, because they all have such long cycles. For that to all line up is really
External planets, real quick. What do you mean?
so that is so we have the personal planets, which is, and again, I will say again, for those that are listening, geocentric perspective. We know that the sun is not a planet. We know that the moon is not a planet. But for the sake of, from a geocentric perspective, for the as above, so below, we're going to call them all planets. So personal planets are everything from, the moon through Saturn. Saturn being a kind of the cusper for personal planets, and then the collective planets is everything past Saturn. So we're going to include Saturn because Saturn shifts signs this year. Saturn moves into Aries. Uranus moves into Gemini. Pluto just moved into Aquarius, kicking off a 20-year cycle. This will be its first full year in Aquarius. Neptune moves into Aries, and that begins a whole brand new 165-year cycle. The last time, by the way, that Neptune moved into Aries was the day before the Civil War began.
That's cool.
Let me drop that on you.
Whoa.
So, and then Jupiter is going to move into Cancer mid-year. that will be the one like kind of south because everything else is in fire and air. Everything else is like masculine, dominant, fire, air, a change. Um, and I have, you know, the lunar nodes are changing soon. January 11th, the nodes move from where they've been in Libra and Aries for the last year and a half. They're moving onto the Pisces Virgo axis. So for the next year and a half, all of our eclipses will be on that Pisces Virgo axis. There's going to be one more this coming year in Aries, which we'll talk about. I'm doing a webinar on December 30th that's going to be like 2 or 3 hours where you will be able to ask questions where I talk in detail about the entire year of 2025, goes month by month by month, and then overarching themes. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, it's at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 30th. You can sign up for that on my website at dnaempowerment.com. And if you can't be there in person, you pay for it, you'll get the recording. And then and even if you're there in person, you're still going to get a copy of the recording to keep so that you can reference it throughout the year. But there's some big important dates all throughout the year. I'm going to talk about all the retrogrades. Venus is going to go retrograde next year. Mercury is going to go retrograde 3 times. I'm going to talk about the dates and what signs and the big aspects that are happening and what we can expect with all these outer planets changing with the, eclipse season is the time of year that all the changes really speed up. What those dates are, the fact that that's happening in Pisces and Virgo now on a new axis, what that means. So, if you haven't signed up for that yet, sign up for it. And if you do it, if you sign up for that, you get a discount on a personal reading for 2025 as well.
Cool.
So you don't have to get a personal reading, but if you want to see where in your chart all these things are happening one-on-one, you get a discount on that if you sign up for the webinar. So
I cannot suggest that medicine enough.
It's
so nice. What a good thing to do for yourself for 2025.
I wanted to get it done. I felt like the new moon on the 30th was the right day to do it. I did host a couple of things for the solstice, which was another reason that I didn't get a podcast out this past winter solstice, which, the winter solstice is when, it's the longest night of the year, right? It's when the dark returns after the the light returns after the winter. It starts to, which means the days start gradually getting longer and the nights start gradually getting shorter at the winter solstice. And it's the birth of the sun, which is why in early Christianity, they decided to change the date of Jesus's birth to that time of the year because he was the son of God, the sun god. And for all the people that were pagan, it aligned with their ritual already because he was the birth of the sun. And winter solstice is a celebration of the birth of the sun, also known in many, many, many traditional cultural religions as being the sun god. The sun was the god. And Jesus is the son of God. So it's very, very similar. And what happens on that day astrologically is that the sun moves out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn. So it leaves Sagittarius at 29 degrees of Sagittarius and moves into 0 degrees Capricorn. Boom. And in order to understand Capricorn season and what's meant to happen on the solstice, do you mind if I'm just going? Do you mind if I keep going?
Go for it. Yeah.
Interrupt me if you need to. So the astrological wheel, it's a wheel, circle, it's a cycle of development. And so each sign, the energy of each sign begets the next, right? And so if you think about Scorpio season, which happens around Halloween and Day of the Dead, and when all the leaves are falling off the trees and everything outside that's green is dying in Scorpio season, it's the breaking down of the point of the wheel, right? It's the breaking down point of the wheel. And then Sagittarius comes after. And Sagittarius season is when we're moving towards the darkest moment in the cycle. And the darkness is the seeding space for the new. And during Sagittarius, Sagittarius is truth. And Sagittarius is what is the light that glows within, even in the darkest time, right? And so after Scorpio season, when everything dies and the darkest month of the year is upon us, we are meant to go within during Sagittarius season, and Sagittarius is fire, to find the spark of truth that remains after the death of what was. And to really connect to the divine spark that's inside of us, right? The flame. And then Sagittarius, the 29th, darker, 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 darker. We've ideally met with that flame of truth that we hold within, that's in our deepest self. And then Capricorn season, boom, we bump into Capricorn energy. And as Capricorn, it's the birth of winter, which is also, Capricorn is earth. So it's cardinal earth. It's initiating, starting earth. It's the seed that goes into the mud that is an extension of whatever the fire of truth we found deep within during the darkness, during the dark season of Sagittarius. We then plant the seed for the foundation of the new when spring comes. And so right now, we're planting that seed. And it needs to be based off of whatever is our deepest, most divine truth, the fire within, a light in the darkness, which the darkness is our subconscious. It's when dream space gets wild, right? It's like we find that truth somewhere. We make what's unconscious conscious. And then we plant a seed still in the dark, but the light is really slowly starting to return. And Capricorn is foundation. Foundation work is mucky and it's muddy, right?
Ooh, yep.
It has to be. That's why Saturn transits are hard. Saturn rules Capricorn. Because we have to work hard to get a really stable foundation for that which we want to build. And so wintertime is foundation, right? This particular solstice was more karmic than we've had in a very, very, very long time, because at 0 degrees of Capricorn, the sun was in a T-square with the lunar nodes of the moon. And then within 2 days of that, so it's kind of like a 3-day thing, the solstice, the moon went into the south node of itself. So the lunar nodes, north node has been in Aries for a year and a half. It's at the very end. It's at 1 degree Aries right now. And the south node has been in Libra at 1 degree Libra. And so it's karmic. It's a time, this seed planting that's happening right now, we're not out of the window, because the first new moon after the solstice is the time to plant the seed for the coming year.
And when you say karmic,
Mm-hmm.
can you elaborate a little bit on what that means?
So the nodes of the moon have to do with the directionality of karma. So when I speak about karma, I am talking about not necessarily the kind of karma's going to get you kind of thing that people say in pop culture. Um, Karma is a direct reflection of the patterns of the mind and this and what we hold in our subconscious and how that creates our external reality. Okay. And so the nodes of the moon are the astrological points that show where our karma is moving towards and what bits of karma are we releasing. And so while the South Node has been in Libra, we have been releasing, letting go of 18 years of karmic cycling around Libra energy for the last year and a half. And we've been moving towards a new, more embodiment of Aries energy, which is going to be important because there's such a massive focus on Aries for the next 2.5 years. People that have planets located between 0 and 4 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, this year's going to be a doozy. So it's a choice moment. If we're letting go of Libra, we're letting go of projection. That is being unaware of how we project our own unconscious muck onto other people in the form of judgment, releasing that ideally, making our problems because of somebody else, right? We're also letting go of the lack of boundaries because Libras prioritize the way other people feel over their own needs, and they don't even realize they're doing it. So this last year and a half, those of us who have lots of dominant Libra energy have become very aware of where we're out of alignment there. And we've been pushed to let go of it. It also is just like a letting go of relationship. If a relationship's time has come, if it's time for it to be let go of, man, this last year and a half, boom, it's like the
So
shitting out.
many stories. So many people are like, what's going on? I'm like, we're seeing it. Like,
Yeah. It's the shitting out point of the zodiac. And of course, it makes a huge difference where you have Libra in your chart, right?
you're just gonna say that and keep going. I need a minute. Okay. No
So
big
on
deal.
the other side, though, is Aries. And if we're moving towards Aries, what are we moving towards? We're moving towards our desires. We're moving towards a right to have them. We're moving towards bravery. We're moving towards surmounting our fear, right? We're moving towards assertion and being able to like stand up for ourselves. Or that's what we've been doing ideally for the last year and a half, this, and it shows up all over the spectrum. Either we've been in its highest form, we're able to say, you know what? No, this doesn't work for me, period. In its lowest form, we blow up and we yell and we scream and we tell other people how awful they are and how right we are. Sound familiar? And and so this ingress of the sun into Capricorn, 0 degrees Capricorn, is a choice moment between the nodes. We are meant to make a choice that is going to last for a very long time, at least for the next year. And we're meant to do it between now and the 30th, 31st, because December 30th is the new moon. And whatever we need to go deep within because it's coming off of Sagittarius season, right? Find that internal flame of truth. What really matters? What really matters? Right? And then there's going to be a choice. And because the north node of the moon is in Aries, we are meant to make the brave choice, whatever that is. If it's not brave, if it doesn't require bravery, it's not the correct choice at this time. I love watching your facial expressions while I do this. So that's the karmic thing, right? It's the karmic choice. Like, are we going to move in the direction of bravery, or are we going to allow ourselves to continue to sit kind of on the shadow side of Libra, which is going to be our new foundation? Capricorn. And it makes a huge difference as to what area of your chart, you know, these three signs are in. And by the way, don't forget Cancer, because Cancer is going to be having a lot of action in 2025. And that's the other side of that grand cross. So when we talk about it, it's always a grand cross. You know, lots of adjustment for our cardinal people.
This is fun.
Isn't it so fun? So the new moon on the 30th is in a sextile to Saturn in Pisces, which is its ruler. So it's stimulating Saturn's work. Saturn is laying a foundation. It's answering to a foundation of a new dream. What's the new dream? Because it's Pisces. And as Saturn and Neptune move into Aries next year, this is all earth and water. It's all foundational. It's all feminine until we get to certain points in next year when Saturn and Neptune will both be in service to Aries energy. And then we're going to see people either that have laid the new foundation and are rooted and grounded in their own knowing and their deep selves and their connection to their own truth and have found their bravery over the course of the last year and a half. And then we're going to see a lot of people who are explosive and eruptive and forceful and aggressive, who are motivated and fueled by fear and power and the shadow side of Aries.
This is a total side note, but I just watched a movie on Netflix called It Ends With Us. And oh my gosh, like all of these themes are coming up. Like
somebody just told me about that movie. Tell me what that's about.
It, in a nutshell, why it relates here is that she falls in love with this beautiful, wonderful, seemingly guy who is really triggering like past wounds of like abuse that her mother went through and rape that her mother went through. What you see is that he's just really a nice guy. But then there's this other person who really is just wholesome. It plays on the themes of like, like making excuses for people that blow up because you do love them. They're not all bad, right? And it paints that picture really nicely of like, no, it's not that black and white. And I don't think that that's what you're saying, but it's like these people who are explosive and not good for us. It's like, or, they're really, and it does show that person's backstory as to why they act that way. And it's sad, but, then there's this like, but it ends with me because, and it's a lot easier sometimes. Well, not actually, I take that back. But like when you're for a mother to make those choices, not that they always physically have the capacity or resources to get free. But either way, it's a really cool film. And I stayed up and was like just stewing and like not stewing, marinating, steeping, like the happy
Yeah.
version
But
of
stew
pulling
is lovely. Stew is lovely, right?
Stew to me, I don't know, maybe it's just I don't know the etymology of it, but to me it seems like a mad, like a
Yeah, but stew is
yeah. I don't know where
like
stew got such a
lovely.
bad, rap at. Either
I
way,
don't know.
it's really just a beautiful film. And
Just this week, my friend Chantel told me about that same film, and she had a profound experience with it too. So I must need to watch it. And
yeah,
that's actually, that's the other piece is that like we're North Node is moving into Pisces, Saturn for this new moon is in Pisces, and Pisces is compassion and empathy and oneness. It's the dream, and it's also remembering our oneness first and foremost. And so being able to hold paradox, right? And so right now Jupiter is in Gemini. Jupiter fucking hates being in Gemini Jupiter wants this one truth, right? It rules Sagittarius. So I was just talking about what is my one fiery truth that I'm passionate about. Gemini is like paradox,
Mm.
and it's the trickster, and yeah, but this, and yeah, but this, and yeah, but this, and yeah, but this. And Jupiter is like really uncomfortable, but it's paving the way. Jupiter is retrograde right now. On February 4th, he stations direct, or it. There's really planets don't have sex, but it's hard to unlearn that. On February 4th, um, Jupiter stations direct in Gemini and is going to have this, ideally, if we've been working correctly with our own muck and not projecting, right? This new truth that is able to embrace the paradox of your truth and 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 your truth, even if they seem like they don't, they can't exist together. It finds a way to do so. And then Uranus is going to move into Gemini, and Uranus is wherever for the next 7.5 years, right? And Uranus is where evolution happens. It's where shocking change happens. And so and at the same time, Jupiter is going to move into Cancer, which is depth work, depth work, maternal, nurturing. You said it. You said it's easier for mothers. It's easier for mothers, but we don't have a mother god. What does that look like? That was lost thousands of years ago.
And that's
And
why it's hard for the mothers.
yeah, right. Well, yeah.
Different podcast.
But she's been
Different podcast.
asleep. She's been asleep. She's coming back. She's
Yeah.
been asleep. She's been in her natural cycle of going under, of her own dissolving. She's been laying a new foundation. Her seed is starting to sprout. I think you can feel it. But it's like the paradox that we must embrace as we move into the evolution for it to not be a war state, right? Is first and foremost, I don't care who you're talking about or what they've done, you see the divinity in them. You see the humanity in them first and foremost. No one is bad, no one is good. We should throw those words away, right? It's the paradox of I'm going to hold a firm boundary with you because I'm protecting myself. And also, I hold you with compassion and empathy, and I see who you are underneath whatever is going on.
Go
Right?
watch that movie. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah,
Ah,
I obviously do. It ends with us. That's what it's called.
yep.
Okay.
That's what I love so much about like film. Like, I mean, we went and watched Wicked together, and I was just like, whoa. Like when art's so powerful. Like it's the place where these musicians and painters like go to make sense of it all. Like it really it's so medicinal. Like you can just walk away like, and sometimes they don't even come out and say it, and it can relate to anybody. Like that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It just it unites us all in this really neat way without polarizing, And again,
Yeah, it speaks to something deeper in us than thought.
it's so cool.
And it's created by, through us, by something deeper than thought.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Every
And
music will tell you, or artist. It's like,
yeah.
did I even make that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that we've all heard that. But yeah, so many Tom Waits. I'll be driving and a song will come and I tell it, if you want to be written, you better come back later. I'm trying to drive.
Or it'll go to somebody else. Where did I
Yeah.
like, what's the book? Oh my God, I'm not even going to remember it. Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah.
She wrote a book recently about her creative process, and she had this book idea that was all written down. She was going to do it, and she ended up having to let it go for some reason. I don't remember what it was, but she met a woman later in life who wrote that book. Like wrote with the same, there's no way it could have been. It's like art, ideas, concepts, books, whatever, they're in the collective waiting for the receptivity to come through. And they're not choosy. It's like, who's ready? I'll go through that vessel, right?
Yeah.
And but Wicked, oh my God, if you knew the number of times that I have played Defying Gravity in my car since we saw the movie, and I've seen it again since then, and I'm going to see it again. Um, I cannot listen to it without crying.
Is that the
And
song where the witch, like when she rises up and takes off?
yes,
Oh my
yeah,
God, that messed me up.
yeah.
I was not the same. I was like,
Unlimited. Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
good.
Go listen to it in your car. Go listen
No,
to it in your car.
I will listen to it in my car, but my kids are usually kicking the back of my seat, and I'm like, play Imagine Dragons, mom.
You
So
know
I will
what?
find a
My
place though.
girls had a really, really, really hard morning. I won't get into why, but my youngest two that were in Anastasia with Fort Wayne Youth Theater had a morning, the morning of closing performance, where there were lots and lots of there was lots of bravery, there was lots and lots of pain, lots of crying, and we got in the car to head there. And I just turned it on and I said, okay, we're all going to have some belting therapy and it'll
Awesome.
be a vocal warm up. And so we just all just screamed that song at the top of our lungs. Sorry, Murphy,
Oh, I
or
love
that
that.
was anti-vocal rest, but it was close enough that it was vocal warm up. I'm
That's
sticking to
so
that.
cool. That's what a neat way to release, you know? Oh, and I think that that's just the wild thing is like these bodies are housing so many things, and that's where all of this just feels so soothing, right? Like we're not nuts, we're not crazy, we're not outside of nature, right? Like we are made of star stuff. We are the same as the garden and the soil, like um but it does feel just the agony that we go through when we're alone in our bodies and we don't understand what's going on, right? Or when we're like adding it to our story of like, yeah, I really do suck, or it's just like the horrible
Mhm.
things that we allow to live on repeat rent free. um it's nice, so nice to just shine a light on it all and be like, you know what, like it's okay, like this is, you're not crazy, this is normal and you can get through this. And that part was not very nice that you did, but I see where you were hurting and let's do better. Like to go in and just like have like I am always going to call it the mama come in. And I love leaning in and kissing Payne's lips, like a mother kissing her child sleeping at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, can we do
Yeah.
that for ourselves? Like,
Yeah. Because I don't think we don't talk enough about how conditioned we all are. Like we all have these aspects of ourselves that we believe are our identity or are an inherent part of us. And so much of it is not. So much of what we think we are is stuff that is conditioned from I
mhm.
mean, from our upbringing, from our parents, from our siblings, from our environment when we were growing up, from
Biological.
school, from biological, yes, inherited stuff that's in our genes. Um, and so just to grasp the concept that like I am not that I'm attached to being, like even if people are like, oh, I'm just this way. Oh, I'm just this way. Well, probably not. That's probably something, a coping mechanism that you developed because something really hard happened to you that caused you discomfort that you didn't have the tools to deal with at the time. And so you developed this identity piece that enabled you to survive.
Yeah.
And
And you can't be mad at that, it's
no,
like,
it
and
helped
that's
you.
where when you look, when like going back to dissolving the like bad person, good person, it's like you can't, when you sit down, like I think if I pulled one of my like favorite pieces out of my study of anthropology throughout the years. It's like I love so much that you really can't monstrosize something any longer once you know it and look at it and observe it. You know, it's like I have a strong connection with a culture that probably opposes darn near everything I believe, love, and stand for. Um, Many of the people that I love probably the most and call family that I've chosen are from Saudi Arabia. But when you sit and you look and you live and you share a table and a meal, you think that you could really hate? Like, do you like you begin to understand? And again, that boundary of like that piece I'm gonna put just over here. Not okay with that, but like that's what we really that's how we can see that sleeping child, you know, that's how we can, you know, like, hey, like there's just, it's a dance, right? Of like lolling back and forth, and I'm going to kiss Pain's lips and I'm going to love on
Yeah.
Pain. But from here, because, and I remember somebody correcting me at one point. I was like, you know, I send that person love. And they're like, no, no, no. And they're speaking from there what worked for them, but it felt really right for me to say like I send that person love. And this I needed this at the time to hear, because I really took it back and was like, huh, that felt right for me to say. Like, no, don't waste your love, don't waste your love on such things, you know. Your love is very sacred and you should keep that and not just send it off to people, just anybody, especially somebody that's violated you. And
That
I
would
didn't,
lead one to believe that there's a limited supply,
yeah. And
and there's
that's,
not.
and I was young and I really respected this person, but that spun and spun and spun. But I knew, I was like, but that did feel right for me to say.
Mhm.
But I see what you're saying. And I just didn't quite have the experience or chops to, you know, it's kind of like when you go back to a conversation, like, yeah, I should have said that. But I shouldn't have,
It was a
because I
seed. It
wasn't ready.
happens.
But it
Yeah.
was, it lived in my mind. And I was just, I didn't understand it there for the longest time. But now I I can be true to what the young girl said,
Mhm.
the young me said, because it was right and true, because you truly you can love somebody even when they're a mess or they've hurt you, or you know. And I think that that's the piece
If there's
where,
conditions on it, it's not love.
exactly.
And that doesn't mean you can love some you I mean, love is not possession. Love is not relationship.
Mhm.
Love is an energy. And it's endless. It's endless.
Mhm.
But where there is attachment and limitation, or even constructs of any kind, it's not love,
Yeah, you're
right?
not really accessing that love. You're
It's
not
not.
there. It's something different. It's like this mirage. It
Mhm.
needs a different word, I feel like, you know. It's like there's this distortion happening, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's
You can
really,
choose to not be in relationship with someone
yeah,
and love them and send them love, as you just said, right? And that is the embracing of the paradox that is the future. You know, it's honoring that internal knowing of this energy is not healthy for me to be around, of
yeah.
not needing to make them bad for it, right? That's the mental thing. You don't have to mentally justify, and that's Gemini and Virgo. Virgos, anybody with Virgo energy, you got a lot coming for you. That's me too. You don't have to mentally justify what your inner knowing says is right for you. You just do it, and you do it with love. There are people that are hard for me to be around energetically, and I don't have to put a reason on it. I just know that I have to not be around them much. And the stopping it before you give a mental justification for it is the future. That's embracing of the paradox. You don't have to make them bad in order to do what's right for you.
even though it feels nice to justify it. I mean, the darling ego is, oh, well, let me have a story and a reason and it's a piece of like building that wall, right? To help us feel safe and like solid, because it is funny sometimes when you're just like, I felt this, I think that we just don't have a lot of practice with it. Um, I feel this way. And the more that we can lean in and use that muscle and be like, oh, I felt it and that was real. And I know that feeling, then you're going to become more fluent at that language, and your body, again, you're making yourself available, and you get better and better at it. And
You really do. And
it's
the thing it comes from, it's an extension of thought is air. Thought is air element. And air is a masculine energy. So thought is masculine. And in our culture for thousands of years, thought, reason, we've attempted to make it our ground, the foundation. But it can't be the foundation because it's air. And the reason we have an anxiety pandemic is because there's been so many years where we have tried to make thought our foundation, and it can't be. And so, yes, and that also is an extension of having only a masculine God, masculine patriarchy. And I'm not saying patriarchy like smash the patriarchy like people say. I'm not saying that. Well, I'm saying we need both, right? We can't have the masculine be the foundation because the masculine is air and fire. Air and fire do not build a foundation. What does earth and water, mud, right? Those are intuitions. It's our body awareness. It's even our emotionality, which is connected to our intuitiveness. It's connected to healing and the breaking down. Um, and so, yeah, we all automatically, and that's the conditioning, like full circle. What's the conditioning of our culture and our society and within which we live, the religious structures that we have. Not that there isn't also really great things that can be found there. I'm not saying it's all bad. I certainly am not. It's just an imbalance. And so we do try to cling to automatically to thought as the reason, thought as the foundation, thought as the justification, but there's no ground to it. So we get anxiety. And when I say that the feminine has been seeded and she's starting to sprout, that's what you're talking about, is that you learn to go inside, put your awareness lower in your body, feel the emotion instead of thinking it away. Let it pass through you, let it wash through you. Learn how large you actually are in the holding of that which the mind wants to take you away from. You know,
I had a really beautiful session, an EMDR session, and I basically was going back and hanging out, and I've done this before, but when just hanging out with my younger self, and I'll be coloring at the table or playing Legos at the table with my boys who I homeschool, and I'll just, take a moment and invite younger me, like, hey, do you want to come and sit at the table with us? And it's so cool to feel in my body. I house her still, and she lives there, and I finally, like, she doesn't need to come anymore, like she doesn't need to join us anymore, but there for a while, to have somebody that wanted to play with her, that truly was so excited to see her. Oh my gosh, like it was insane to feel the softness. And the next piece that why I bring this up is that you forget sometimes when you're looking at these trees that are a direct reflection of us. I was staring when I was doing the original exercise of just like navigating her. pain and her abandonment that she was dealing with. Um, you forget sometimes these giant oak trees, these wild pines, they did not fucking get tall, firm, rooted, solid, grounded without season after season of suffering, pain. Trees, they can't run away. They can't communicate in the way that we do. They have another system, but they can't fully, they can't go hide, right? They're completely exposed. And in a way, so are we, right? Like, especially as children, we don't, gosh, children are so pure. They're very simple. Like, they just make me think of trees. But either way, as I was doing this exercise, I'm looking at this epic, just mama tree. And it was windy and blowing. And she just was doing this dance. Like, these brand
Mm-hmm.
new, like new growth, the lighter green is always the new growth on a tree. And they're new, but and they're the ones getting the most movement way out on the edge and getting the most turbulence and wind and anxiety and discomfort. But at the root and the core is just this knowing. And
Well,
she's
it's because
it's
of that rootedness, right?
it
Like
is
down in
it's
the earth,
yeah,
down deep. And that's where it has to start.
yeah.
And that's Kundalini, right? It's like what goes up into the other awareness centers
Mhm.
has to start as a really strong foundation in our root.
Yeah. So dancing back and visiting our roots, I mean, what a
Mm-hmm.
epic place to explore, like I didn't realize that there was a little girl who was sitting in her bedroom all alone. Like, I was able to see the wallpaper when I went back that I forgot
Mm-hmm.
about. Princess Peach, Mario, Luigi, Yoshi on the
Yeah.
walls. I forgot. Was able to see that some of the toys on the floor, and like I got rid of that memory because it felt uncomfortable and scary. And so that's where I'm just it.
But you
We
had
have a
to,
whole root
it was in the
system.
dark of you. It was in
Yeah.
the subconscious. It was hidden. And so that's
Mhm.
what I'm talking about is like shining a light in the darkness is making what is unconscious conscious. That
Mhm.
memory was unconscious, but it was ruling you from down below,
Yeah.
right? Because of
Oh my
that
God.
experience that wasn't processed at the time. And then when we say bringing light, that's just making ourselves consciously aware of it. So you bring the
Yeah.
memory up, and therein lies the healing because now Mama Lyndsy has the ability to process that hardship that
Mhm.
little Lyndsy couldn't, And I had a similar experience. I did a regression therapy with somebody here locally that does regression therapy. And I went back to when I was one and I saw the inside of my crib like
Whoa.
boldly that I didn't remember. Like I had a really unique crib where there were baby chicks painted on the inside of it. And I had no memory. And later I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, did I have this on the inside of my crib? And he was like, Yeah, you did. And I had
That's
these
cool.
memories from way back then that were informing how I was showing up in relationship now
Yep.
from when I was one. So when we talk about doing depth work, going into the darkness is not scary. It's just the stuff that's in our unconscious that we need to learn is
Mhm.
making us make choices that we don't even realize. It's like informing our decisions in our conscious life.
And
But
I
I
love
love that you sat with
too.
me. Hmm?
Yeah, then thank you for sharing. That's such a neat. Humans are freaking awesome. Wow. The things that we are capable of doing. Um, Another thing that is coming to my mind when it comes to healing and balance of all the elements, right? And the balance of to like truly soften and heal, you can't just use one tool. It's like getting all parts of the body, the conscious and the subconscious online
Mm-hmm.
and using, and again, there's a million different ways to heal, but to really, you can't just use the the brain to heal the emotions or the emotions to heal the brain. It really, it's a getting it all online
Mm-hmm.
and then accessing where is this in my body, getting the story, getting the mind online getting the emotions online. I just think there's, and again, there's different methodologies on how to get there. EMDR is my favorite, but I'm just like, in the body keeps the score. It talks about how the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain both have to be on. And that's what EMDR
Mm-hmm.
is doing, triggering that, because
Yeah.
it's the, and like some people are like, oh, well, I'm a more left side of the brain person, really like artsy and colors and smells. And, just my right side is just, I'm not really a mathy, but really it takes both sides
Mm-hmm.
communicating together, working together, just like every darn other thing in life.
And that's Libra,
Move it
right? It's
through.
both. Libra is both. And we all have Libra somewhere in our chart. And so that is the area where we each, because we're all each different and unique. And wherever we have Libra in our chart is where we are going to be able to find that balance of both sides of all the polarities within us the easiest. And I totally agree with you that, like, for me, multiple different modalities do I use, right?
Yoda.
Kundalini
You just
yoga.
sounded like Yoda.
Uh, I have a practice that is called ceremonial magic that I have morphed into my own over the years that is rooted in the Jewish Kabbalah that is becoming more and more powerful the more I do it.
Cool.
And I've gone to a shaman for help. I have gone to, and done shamanic work, and I have um spent time in the Kriya yoga system studying, and also past life regression or early childhood regression therapy and things like that. But it's really, there's no hierarchy of modality, right? There's what feels, and that's the way we can exercise our, don't think about it, feel it. How does your body respond when I say Kundalini yoga? How does your body respond? Or maybe just try it. And if it feels like there's something there, great. If it doesn't, maybe that's not your system. Astrology isn't for everybody, but for the people that it is, wow. You know, um, Embracing the fact that there is all different ways up the mountain, same mountain, and different people need different pathways up or down the inverted mountain. That's my
For people who aren't watching this, Danielle now looks like she's performing Swan Lake. uh,
Okay, I think that's good for today. That was great.
Cover it. Yeah, that was my favorite. I'm
I think
picking
it's my
favorite.
favorite too. I think we're finding our groove,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Also, not like rumbling off in the weeds, like, hey, everybody, we're here, and other things. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good way to end the year. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy
Last
New
one.
Year. Happy solstice. Happy whatever holiday you celebrate, feel warm and cozy about or not.
Mhm.
Um, and thanks for listening. And go sign up for the 2025 Year Ahead Astrology webinar on DNAempowerment.com.
And get yourself a reading for 2025. That's what I suggest. If it feels right for you.
If it feels right for you. But yeah, hey, I suggest that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love to do it. It's privilege all day long. The final thing I want to say is the anchor, the anchor that will keep us rooted through 2025 is gratitude. We become what we think about. And we must remember, instead of the focus on what's wrong, what's scary, what's awful, shift the mind. If you want to shift your life, shift the mind, feel into, even if it's the tiniest little thing, like, oh my God, when I go to bed at night, I think about my morning cup of coffee and how grateful I am that every morning I get to wake up and drink that beautiful coffee from Old Crown, degree of darkness. And just like we can go into painful emotions in our body, we can go into the feeling of gratitude in our body, find where it is, and we can consciously make it bigger and play and dance with the felt sense of it. So if you have no other practice for 2025, make that your practice. My suggestion.
It's good advice.
Yeah. I love you, Lyndsy.
I love you too, Danielle. Thanks for hanging out, whoever's here.
And
Far, but you must
I
be
don't
pretty
know when the
cool.
next podcast will be, but you better click follow, like, whatever, because then you will be notified because it's going to be sporadic. How about that?
But it will be legit and true and authentic.
It will be. All right. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.